Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne Bienville. Now he knew of the Mississippi River, and he knew it'd be a great place to build a city at the mouth of the Mississippi River. So he came over from France, came up the Mississippi River looking for the highest piece of ground he could find, and that's where the French Quarter is today. Now all around the French Quarter was swampland, so over time we've dug canals to be able to help drain the swamps off, to be able to expand the city. That's why today most of the city of New Orleans is about 6 feet below sea level. Now New Orleans was named after Philippe Duc d'Orleans, who was the regent of France at the time. Now this area that we're in right now, this is what we call the foot of Canal Street. And this is where Canal Street meets the river, right here in front of us. And right here in front of us, or on your right over there, at the very end of Canal Street, there's a ferry that crosses the Mississippi River. So while you're here, if you want to get a good close-up look at the mighty Mississippi, all you have to do is come on down here to the end of Canal Street, hop on that ferry, and take a quick little boat ride across. Now, it's absolutely free for pedestrians. Not too often you run across something free, but there you go. Now, right over here to the left is Harrah's Casino. Now, has anybody going over there to make a donation yet? I've made a few over there. Now, we're on Canal Street right now, and you can do a whole lot of shopping here on Canal Street. Into the French Quarter. Now right over here to the left, you're going to see this large gray building. This is the old Customs building. It was built back in 1850. Now when they built this building, they weren't sure what side was going to be the front, so they built all 4 sides identical and said they'd figure out what side would be the front later on. Today, the side facing Canal Street houses the Insectarium. Now, the city was founded by the French back in 1718, but they turned around and transferred the land to the Spanish back in 1762. Now, the Spanish turned around and transferred the land back to the French in 1803, but under one condition, that they do not resell the land. Well, 20 days later, they sold it under the Louisiana Purchase. Now coming up here to the left, you're going to see a statue of our founding father Bienville, the Jesuit priest who accompanied him over here, and the Tchoupitoulas Indians who are already here in southern Louisiana, right here on the left. Now just behind the statue, there's a second line parade. Pretty tame this morning. Not exactly sure what they're parading for. Now, during that Spanish period, we had 2 major fires, and between the 2 fires, it destroyed about 80% of the French Quarter. So today, most of the buildings here in the French Quarter were built between 1790 and 1850. Now, the steamboat Natchez is the largest and oldest steamboat on the Mississippi River, and it does offer 2-hour cruises daily. They have one at 11:30, one at 2:30, and then they have a dinner jazz cruise at 6:30. Dedicated to the city. Now, Andrew Jackson is the defender of New Orleans after winning the Battle of New Orleans in 1812. Now, just behind Jackson Square, you're going to see the St. Louis Cathedral. Now, that's actually the 3rd church building on that site. The first one was destroyed by a hurricane. Second one destroyed by a fire. But that particular building was built in 1795, and that is the oldest Roman Catholic cathedral in the country, and it does offer Mass and tours daily. Now, the building just to the left of the cathedral is the Cabildo, and that's where they originally signed the Louisiana Purchase documents back in 1803. Now, as you know, the Louisiana Purchase sold for $15 million, which averages about 3 cents per acre. And the city of New Orleans sold for only $7. Today, that building is used as a museum. The flag, this is Miss Joan of Arc. She's going to be on your left here in just a moment. Now, she's the maid of New Orleans, but she was actually a gift from France, and she's standing right here in front of the French Market. So if you're walking around the French Quarter looking for the French Market, all you have to do is walk straight down Decatur Street and just look for Joni on the pony right over there. Now, if you then down to Bourbon Street, you're going to notice it's become very commercial. They don't play a whole lot of jazz and blues down there anymore. But while you're here in the city, if you want to listen to some good New Orleans jazz and blues music, this is where you need to come. Come on down to Frenchman Street. This is where most of the locals come. Now to get here, all you have to do is walk straight down Decatur Street, and you're going to run right into Frenchman. Now it's just about a 2.5 block stretch area here where there's about a dozen little clubs. You can listen to some wonderful music here in the evenings. Now right here on the left is the Blue Nile. Now they actually have 2 stage floors, one upstairs and one down. There's Yuki on the right. A wonderful little restaurant here on Frenchman Street. Now if you look at the far left corner over here, you're going to notice this yellow building with the green balcony. I want you to look about 2 feet below the balcony over there. Do you see those spikes on those poles? Those are called Romeo spikes. Now back in the 1800s, fathers who had teenage daughters would put those up there to prevent little boys from climbing up after dark. They say they would climb up a Romeo, but when they came down, they'd become a Juliet. But you're going to see those all around the French Quarter as you're walking around. We have Apple Barrel right here on the right. Now, if you want a permanent reminder of your visit to New Orleans, here's a yellow tattoo shop on the left. The brown building on the left is DBA. We have Spotted Cat Music Club coming up on the right. And then probably one of the most popular ones here on the left is Snug Harbor. To any visitor center. Now go on in and ask them for a Where magazine. Now that's going to be a helpful little tool while you're here in the city. It's going to let you know who's playing at what clubs, what special events are going on around the city. It's also going to give you information on all the art galleries, museums, restaurants. You're going to notice that that little house is just about 12 feet wide, but it goes back about 50 feet. Now, every door in that home is lined up in a row. They say if you open up every door in that home, you can shoot a shotgun through the front door to kill the chicken in the backyard. So we call that, anybody know? A shotgun house. Now it was actually designed like that for ventilation. Now the yellow house just to the left of the shotgun house, that's actually 2 shotgun houses with a wall down the middle. So we call that one a double shotgun. And you're going to see a whole lot of double shotgun houses around the city of New Orleans. Here's another one here on the right corner. Another one over there on the left. So like I said, you're going to see those all around the city. Sold mostly to free people of color. Now, free people of color owned a great deal of real estate here in the city of New Orleans back in 1812, and all that was way before the Civil War. Now, back then, free people of color even owned slaves here in the city. The song was Mother-in-Law. I know most of you know that song. Now, he died a couple of years ago, but Kermit Ruffins just recently took over that lounge. Also coming up here on the left, you're going to see some painted columns. And this is an art project started by the New Orleans African American Museum. And they're painted for Black history here in the city. Now, if you look at the pink column right over here to the left, you're going to see a beautiful smiling face of Mr. Fats Domino right there. Now, he still lives here in the city of New Orleans. He used to live a little further down in the 9th Ward, and his house was heavily flooded. He had about 8 feet of flood water in his house. Now, if you want to leave anything on the bus, you're welcome to do so. I will be closing the bus up. Now watch your step in the city, especially the area between New Orleans and the Gulf of Mexico. All that area was heavily flooded, and coffins were found floating all around. And still today, they haven't been able to identify some of those coffins to be able to return them. Now, if you like, the tombs are pretty neat, though, aren't they? Now, if you like cemeteries and you want to go into another one on your own, you can always go into St. Louis Cemetery number 1. Now it's right there at the edge of the French Quarter, and it is the oldest cemetery here in the city. Now the beautiful brick building right here in front of us is the New Orleans Museum of Art. It was founded back in 1911 by Isaac Delgado, and in there's over 40,000 pieces of art on display. Now the museum is also in part of City Park. Now this is just a small section of the park. But right here behind the museum, there's a little cafe, and we're going to stop there for a few minutes, give everybody a little restroom break at that time. Also, while we're there, I'm going to go ahead and collect payments from everybody. Now, while you're down here, if you want to get that whole southern Louisiana feel, Cajun Encounters does offer 2 other tours if you're interested. Working Creole Plantation. The second one is Oak Alley. It's a little Mulgrand Spanish Explorers. Now, it's actually in the Vermilion family, and it only grows on trees. And they used to stuff mattresses with Spanish moss back in the 17 and 1800s. They also used Spanish moss to stuff the original Model T Ford seats with.